Hi, it's Mike again, and welcome to this series of videos on cascading style sheets, or CSS. I presume you've done HTML before, so I'll crack on. So, learning objectives of this video is to understand what CSS is, understand what CSS does, where to add it in our code, and then we're going to be talking about CSS selectors and properties. So what is CSS? Well, it's called Cascading Style Sheets. What does it do? Well, it styles our web applications, be it web apps or web pages or websites. And cascading style sheets, we can add color, we can add spacing, we can size different things, be it images and fonts. We can add different font families. We can add borders and margins and so on, and effectively this is the art bit of coding. Okay, so that's CSS Cascading Style Sheets, and it's a whole bunch of fun. We can do lots and lots of things with it. So where do we add it? Well, there's three options, to be honest with you. But before I go on, if there's any folk from England sort of watching this video, please note that the spelling is all in English US, okay, and you can see in the line that I've written in sort of teal colour, the name colour is in US spelling, and also the colour grey. So anything on the web is English US spelling, okay, so just bear that in mind. Anyway, so where do we add CSS to our HTML? So the first one is we can do it in line. And that means that in this example, our H2 heading is being styled in the color grey, okay, but no other H2 heading on that page, or indeed anywhere on the website, is going to be color grey. Okay, so inline CSS is specific to that single heading, and it will not cascade to other H2 headings in this instance. The second option we have is to add internal style sheets. Okay, and where do we put it? Well, we put it in the header, or in the head area of our HTML page. Now, in this video, we're not going to write any code. We'll do that in the next video. But you can see in the head section, you've got the head opening tag and the head closing tag, and it's between there we add a style opening tag and a style closing tag, and it's within the style tags that we put our CSS. And in this instance, we can see H1 curly brackets, color grey, note the US spelling again, and then closing with the curly brackets. Okay, now this is just on one page. It will not cascade to other web pages on your website, just on the page that it is on. So just imagine having a web page with, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 different web pages within your website. Well, the way we style all of them is using an external style sheet. Okay, but at the top of each of our web pages, within the head section again, we need to add this link, and it's saying relative. It's a style sheet, and the link is file name, whatever you can call it, .css, and then the closing sort of pointy brackets, if you like. Okay. Now, if we do it this way, then the CSS file will cascade to all other web pages on your site. So let's have a look at a couple of examples. This is a single page application that I wrote, and effectively I was playing around with HTML forms, and you can see on the left hand side there's a nice little form in the bottom where you can enter your card details. And in this instance, what happens is when you type your first name and last name, it appears on the sort of credit card, debit card sort of picture at the top, so that's quite neat. When you put in your card number, that also appears on the sort of payment card at the top. So that's all well and good, but the CSS, what that was doing was colouring the card, creating borders and widths and so on and so forth, yeah? But let's have a look on the right-hand side. This is how I did it. At the top, on the right-hand side, you can see my file structure. So I had a folder with 3 files. There was creditcard.html, which is what you see on the left-hand side, creditcard.css, which is all the CSS code that's going to create the colors and all that stuff. And there's a creditcard.js. No need to worry about that one at the moment. That's JavaScript. So now, if we look at the code below in the sort of black area there, within the head section, and we can only see the sort of closing head tag there, but just above that, I've got link rel equals inverted commas style sheet, inverted commas, then href, and we know what hrefs do. Effectively, it links to something, and then creditcard.css. So in effect, this HTML code is now pointing to and linking to creditcard.css. Okay, so that is effectively pointing to an external CSS sheet or an external cascading style sheet. Let's have a look at another one. Here's another little application I've created. I'm using it all the time with a list of things to do. On the right hand side again, look at the file structure. So I've got a folder with things to do, and then 3 files, one with called things to do.html, the code is below, things to do.css, and things to do.javascript. So let's have a look at the code below. It's all on the HTML page, and right at the bottom there's link rel equals inverted commas style sheet href, that is the link, to things to do.css, which if you look at the file structure above, the things to do.html has got that link within it, linking it to things to do.css. Okay, so CSS effectively is written with selectors and properties. Now, what's a selector? Well, we can target the HTML tags that we've written within our HTML. In this instance, in the color teal, we've got an H2 that we saw earlier on, if you like. The H2 is the selector, and the properties that we're adding are within curly brackets. Okay, now you're thinking, well, hey Mike, what's all this? You put H2 curly brackets, then on a separate line color gray, and then another curly brackets. Well, you will see shortly why we do this, because it just makes the code more readable. So that's one way of targeting things on our HTML page. That is just targeting the H2. However, what we can do is target class attributes and ID attributes. Now, you haven't come across these yet in the HTML because I left those out on purpose for this particular video. So we can target class attributes with a full stop or a period or a decimal point, whatever you want to call it. It's a dot, okay? Or we can target ID attributes with a hashtag. And hopefully you're familiar with hashtags. Let's say if you use Twitter or whatnot, using hashtags all the time. Now, have a look on your keyboard in front of you. Where on earth is the hashtag? Now, I think on a Windows computer it's quite obvious, but if you're using a Mac, it's not so obvious. So just for those Mac users, you need to press the Option and the number 3 key, okay, and you'll get the hashtag. It took me ages to find how I add a hashtag. Anyway, so moving on from hashtags, let's have a look on the left-hand side of this screen. You've got li, okay, and li, you'll remember from HTML, that's a list item. So in this instance, I'm adding a font size of 1.2 EMs, and we'll cover that in the next video or so. And we can see we're giving it a border top, 6 pixels, solid and white. Okay, don't worry about things, but it just looks sort of relatively straightforward at the moment. Okay, now what that LI will do, it will target each list item on that page with the font size and the border top. Now then, the next one, is targeting a class attribute. And I'm going to show you that in HTML in a moment. So what is a class attribute? Well, it can target many things on our website. And we do it with a full stop, and you can see on the left hand side we've got full stop or period or dot, whatever you want to call it, dot collection. And then we're going to give everything that has the class of collection with no border, i.e. border, colon, non-semicolon. And then below that, what we've got is an ID. And we use IDs just once on HTML pages. I repeat that, we use IDs just once on HTML files, okay? And in this instance, there will be something on our web page which has got hashtag.left ID, and we're going to color it white. Let's have a look at IDs within our HTML and how we code that. You'll hopefully be familiar with HTML, as I said at the beginning of the video, and we can target individual HTML elements with the ID by effectively typing ID equals inverted commas, then give it a unique name. And in this example, what we can see is 2 P tags, each with a unique name. So the first one, unique name, and then the next one, another unique name. Okay. So you can call these IDs anything you want, but it's got to be unique to that one thing on that web page. And we're going to have bags of practice with this sort of thing. However, a class, don't forget we target a class with CSS by the dot or the full stop or the period or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so what's the difference between an ID and a class within HTML? Well, ID is for just one thing on the page. A class is for various things on the same page. So in this instance, what we're doing is targeting the P tags, or these 2 P tags at least, with the same class. And on the page, there may be other P tags that we don't want to sort of target. So it's just these 2. Okay, before we close on this video, what I want to do is just to show you my new website that I've been working on for the last few weeks. And we'll talk about CSS. So I've got a website, alittlegreyhair.com. I'm a learning technologies expert during the day and a freelance web developer during the night, and I'd love to create these videos for you. So what have I done with CSS? Well, at the top, you can see the blue navigation bar, and you can see the links, and when I hover on a link, it changes color to like a maroon. So that's quite sweet. Then I've added this image with CSS, and this is an H1 tag, and this is an H2 tag, each coloured the same blue as the navigation bar at the top. Then, effectively, this is what I want my customers to see at the beginning. I've got a welcome in exactly the same blue as the headings above, and then just to break it up a bit, I've coloured the next heading, or H3, with this maroon colour, which is exactly the same maroon colour that you can see if I hover on a button up there. Then you've got all this sort of text, and on the right hand side you can see this nice card effect where you've got a little shadow around the card. Well, guess what? That's using CSS as well. And you know, the font, you can see just under this picture of me, or this little cartoon of me, you've got probably an H2 tag, dark blue, and then what I've done is this is the P tag, and the P is a nice coloured dark grey. Then I've got a Contact Me button, just in case anybody needs my services. And you can see when I hover over it, it turns this nice maroon. And also the button has got this sort of nice sort of circular ends to it. Well, funnily enough, that is all done with CSS. Now, I'm going to sort of click on this Contact Me button, and it's going to whiz down to the bottom of the page. I'm going to do it now. And here's my footer area on the page. And just at the top of the sort of blue section down here, I've said contact options. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 icons. Okay, the icons aren't CSS; those are HTML. But you see, I've coloured them all white with the footer of the dark blue. Guess what? That's CSS in the making. But I just want to show you this because I just loved it. You know, these spin if you sort of hover your mouse over them, and that is JavaScript in action. It's CSS and JavaScript working together. So that's really neat. Okay, so I think that's it for this video. So going back to learning objectives, we were talking about CSS and what it is. Well, it is short for cascading style sheets. What it does, well, we can add colors and borders and margins and white space and fonts and font sizes and so on and so forth. Where do we add it? Well, we can either add it inline, which is bad practice. We can either add it internal, so on one page, but that's sort of bad practice as well, okay, because it only affects what is on that one web page. And then the good practice is to have it external, so that it affects many pages on your website or web application. So it's written, as we've seen, with selectors and properties. The selectors target things on the HTML page, and the properties are written within curly brackets. We haven't seen any properties to write yet, but we'll get used to those. So that's it with CSS. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.